The bright studio lights of Good Morning America glowed warmly as the audience applauded Tom Cruise's entrance. He walked in with his signature smile, calm, confident, and composed, moving with the ease of someone who had spent a lifetime in front of cameras. Michael Strahan greeted him with his usual charm, the kind that makes interviews feel friendly, casual, almost effortless. They shook hands, exchanged a few light jokes, and the crowd responded with laughter and applause, already comfortable, already relaxed. At first, everything flowed smoothly. Talk about films, stunts, and Cruise's legendary work ethic. Strahan praised his discipline, calling him one of the last true movie stars, and Cruise responded with humility, crediting directors, crews, and co-stars. He spoke about training, about respecting the craft, about how every role still felt like a learning experience. The audience leaned in, fully engaged, enjoying the rhythm of a classic celebrity interview. Strahan shifted the conversation toward Cruise's action scenes, mentioning the dangerous stunts he had become famous for. Clips played on the screen behind them: high-speed chases, rooftop jumps, planes in midair, helicopters over mountains. The crowd gasped and clapped as each clip rolled. Cruise laughed lightly, shaking his head as if he were watching someone else. "I just love the challenge," he said calmly. "It's about pushing yourself, but also trusting the people around you. None of it happens alone." The atmosphere still felt warm, friendly, controlled. But then the tone subtly changed. Strahan leaned forward slightly in his chair, his voice still polite but more serious. "You've been at the top for decades," he said. "That kind of success comes with pressure, expectations, people watching every move you make. Do you ever feel trapped by that image?" It wasn't an aggressive question, but it wasn't soft either. Cruise paused for a fraction of a second, just enough for the audience to notice. His smile stayed, but it became more restrained. His posture straightened. "I don't feel trapped," he replied. "I feel responsible. There's a difference." The crowd murmured quietly, sensing the shift. Strahan nodded, but continued. "Some people say you are very controlled with your image. That you don't let the public see the real Tom Cruise. That everything feels calculated." The word hung in the air. A few audience members exchanged glances. The studio felt quieter now, the kind of quiet that comes before tension, not comfort. Cruise's expression remained calm, but his eyes sharpened slightly. He crossed his hands together, resting them on his knee, grounded, steady. "I think there's a misunderstanding," he said evenly. "Privacy isn't calculation. It's boundaries." Strahan smiled, but pressed on. "But fans feel like they've grown up with you. They feel connected. Don't you think they deserve more honesty, more openness?" The energy in the room shifted again, subtle, but undeniable. The playful warmth from earlier was fading, replaced by a serious, focused intensity. Cruise inhaled slowly, clearly choosing his words. "I give honesty through my work," he said. "Through my performances. Through my commitment. My personal life isn't a product. It's not something I sell." A soft ripple of applause came from part of the audience, but it was hesitant, unsure. Strahan adjusted in his seat. "Some critics argue that you control narratives too tightly, that you shut down conversations instead of engaging with them." There it was. The edge in the question. The line that moved the interview from curiosity into confrontation. Cruise looked directly at Strahan now, not aggressively, not angrily, but firmly. His voice stayed calm, but it carried weight. "I don't shut down conversations," he said. "I shut down disrespect. There's a difference." The room went silent for a moment. You could hear the studio air conditioning, cameras whirring softly, the faint shuffle of someone in the audience adjusting in their seat. The tension wasn't loud, it was controlled, heavy, and focused, like pressure building before a storm. Strahan tried to keep the tone light. "That's not what I meant." But Cruise gently raised his hand, not in anger, but in calm control. The gesture itself commanded attention. "Let me finish," he said, his voice steady but firm. "I've spent decades working with thousands of people. Crews, actors, directors, fans. I respect the audience deeply, but I don't believe respect means access to every part of my life." The audience began to clap, this time louder, more confident. The mood shifted again, but now in Cruise's favor. Strahan nodded slowly, sensing the crowd's reaction, but still tried to regain control of the moment. "Fair enough. But when you're one of the most famous people in the world, isn't that just part of the deal?" Cruise leaned slightly forward. No, he said simply. Fame is part of the job. Losing your identity isn't. That line landed hard. A loud wave of applause broke out across the studio. Some people stood. Others cheered. The tension didn't disappear, but it transformed. It was no longer discomfort. It was energy, power, momentum. Cruz continued, his voice calm, composed, but undeniably commanding. I've always believed in showing respect, not spectacle. In doing the work, not feeding noise. Interviews should be about stories, creativity, and purpose, not trying to corner someone into defending their humanity. The room felt different now. The balance of control had shifted. Cruz wasn't defensive. He wasn't emotional. He was grounded, clear, and unshakable. Strahan smiled again, but this time it looked more cautious than confident. He nodded slowly, trying to steer the interview back to safer ground. All right, he said lightly. Let's talk about the new film. But the audience was still buzzing, whispering, reacting. The moment had already happened. The shift was already real. The interview had crossed a line and come back stronger on the other side. Cameras zoomed in on Cruz's face, calm, controlled, unbothered. Not angry. Not shaken. Just solid. The energy in the studio was no longer casual morning show friendliness. It felt historic. Like one of those moments people would clip, share, and replay online. Not because of shouting. Not because of chaos. But because of composure. Because of control. Because of a man who didn't raise his voice, didn't insult, didn't explode, yet somehow took the entire room back with nothing but calm authority. And everyone in that studio knew it. The interview hadn't just changed tone. It had changed direction. And the real clash was only beginning. The studio didn't fully return to its earlier warmth. Even as Michael Strahan tried to guide the conversation back to safe territory, movies, premieres, red carpets, the atmosphere remained charged. Something had shifted. The audience wasn't just watching an interview anymore. They were witnessing a moment. A power shift. A quiet confrontation that didn't need raised voices to feel intense. Strahan smiled and gestured toward the big screen behind them. Let's talk about the new film, he said, trying to lighten the mood. The stunts, the scale, the madness. People are calling it your most dangerous project yet. A clip began to play. Explosions. High-speed chases. A helicopter spiraling through clouds. The audience reacted instinctively. Gasps, applause, excitement. For a moment, the energy felt normal again. Tom Cruise nodded, watching the screen with a calm expression. It's about storytelling, he said when the clip ended. The stunts aren't the point. The story is. But the tension hadn't disappeared. It had only gone quiet. Strahan leaned back, listening, then leaned forward again. You've always pushed limits, he said. But people wonder, why keep doing it? You've already proven everything. Cruz looked at him thoughtfully. I haven't proven anything, he replied. Proving is ego. Growth is purpose. The audience murmured softly. The words felt heavier than a normal interview response. Deeper. More personal. Strahan nodded slowly. Some would say that's obsession. Cruz smiled slightly. Some would say it's passion. The crowd reacted with applause. There was a rhythm now, question, answer, reaction, but the balance wasn't even anymore. Cruz wasn't just responding. He was guiding the tone, the meaning, the direction of the conversation. Strahan tried again, gently. You're known for control, precision, discipline. But do you ever get tired of carrying that image? Cruz paused. This time, the silence felt intentional. Not hesitation, control. I don't carry an image, he said quietly. I carry responsibility. To the people I work with. To the stories I tell. To the audience that shows up. The studio grew still again. Strahan shifted in his seat. But people expect more access now. Social media. Realness. Vulnerability. Stars today share everything. Cruz looked directly at him. His voice stayed calm, but it carried authority. Realness isn't exposure, he said. Vulnerability isn't performance. And authenticity doesn't require a camera. That line hit hard. A wave of applause rolled through the audience, louder than before. People stood again. Some clapped over their heads. The energy surged, not chaotic, but powerful. Strahan smiled, but this time it looked more like acceptance than control. He nodded. Fair point. The producers in the control room could feel it too. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was becoming a viral moment. A defining clip. The kind of exchange that would flood social media with captions, quotes, edits, and debates. Strahan tried to move forward. Let me ask you this, he said carefully. What do you want people to understand about you, really understand? Cruise leaned back slightly, thoughtful. When he spoke, his voice was calm, grounded, sincere. That I'm human, he said. Not a brand. Not a symbol. Not a headline. Just someone who loves his craft and respects his audience. The words didn't feel rehearsed. They felt real. The room softened. For the first time since the tension began, the atmosphere changed. Not into excitement, not into confrontation, but into something quieter. Respect. Strahan nodded slowly. That's fair, he said. That's honest. There was a brief silence, peaceful this time. But then Strahan, perhaps without realizing it, pushed one final time. Still, he said, when you're as influential as you are, people will always push. They'll always question. They'll always want more. Cruise didn't hesitate. They can want, he said. But I decide. Not aggressive. Not loud. Final. The room reacted instantly. Applause. Cheers. Standing ovation. Not because of drama, but because of clarity. The moment felt definitive. Strahan laughed softly, raising his hands in surrender. All right, he said. Message received. The tension dissolved into laughter and applause. The cameras caught Cruise smiling. Not a defensive smile, not a forced one, but a calm, relaxed expression. The storm had passed. The interview wrapped up quickly after that. Final questions. Final smiles. Final applause. The segment ended like any other Good Morning America appearance, but the energy in the studio felt different. When the cameras cut, the audience buzzed with conversation. People whispered, replaying lines in their heads. Producers exchanged looks. Crew members smiled quietly. Everyone knew what had just happened. Not an argument. Not a meltdown. Not chaos. But a shutdown. Clean. Calm. Controlled. Within minutes, clips were spreading online. Short videos. Captions. Edits. Quotes in bold text. Privacy isn't calculation. It's boundaries. Fame is part of the job. Losing your identity isn't. They can want. But I decide. Social media exploded. Fans praised Cruise's composure. Commentators debated the moment. Some defended Strahan. Others called it one of the most powerful celebrity interview moments in years. Not because of shouting. Not because of insults. But because of control. Because Tom Cruise didn't dominate the moment with volume. He dominated it with calm. With clarity. With presence. And as the clips continued to spread, one thing became clear. This wasn't just an interview that went tense. It was a moment people would remember. A moment where composure outshined confrontation. Where silence spoke louder than noise. Where one man didn't raise his voice, yet still took control of the entire room.